Hi everyone, Craig here from GTconsult. We're back talking about some of our AI functionality, and in today's topic, we're going to look at a component of AI, specifically adaptive cards. And some of you might be going, well, what is an adaptive card? We'll be discussing that within the process. So what we're going to show today is how to dynamically build an adaptive card, which is awesome because if you're very technical, you probably know how to put together an adaptive card. If you're not technical, well, we're going to give you a way to do it without having to worry about knowing too much of the code. So let's jump straight in. Okay, so what exactly is a adaptive card? Well, adaptive card is a piece of technology that allows you to present data. So think about if you're sending someone a message in Teams or in Copilot and you want that to be constructed in a very formatted way, well, that's where an adaptive card comes in. So what you can see here at adaptivecard.io designer is the original Microsoft Adaptive Card Designer Studio, where we can build a card by dragging and dropping components like containers, fact sets, column sets, etc., right down to elements like images and media, and quite importantly, action buttons. Now, to make this usable across platforms, we're talking email, we're talking Teams, we're talking Copilot, the designer utilizes a JSON object, which is the string that is collected at the bottom. So if we drag in the components, the string gets updated. And we utilize that within our workflows or in our AI agents to present data. So this underlying code here is basically a representation of this card that we're seeing. So where do we get samples of these types of cards? Well, once again, at adaptivecards.io, you can go and have a look at things like here. We've got the flight details card, and it shows you how that card is built up with the technology. At the same time, if we went to something like an order confirmation, very different type of card that is generated here, where it shows you some information where you can place an order. So they can be quite interactive in terms of the cards themselves. What you will have noticed though is on both of these pages, there's suddenly this big pink block at the top, and that's been updated recently. And the reason for it, as it's saying, are you building these for Copilot, for Teams, for Outlook scenarios? Because there are new design capabilities that are available to you for those mediums. And the same for the designer, gives you a very similar input over here, asking you about the new adaptive card designer. And if we move across to that new designer, what you'll see is that it adds in a number of functionalities that we didn't have before. Some of them really exciting. So it takes a little while to load here. Once it does, you'll see that there are a number of other actionable elements, such as badges and code blocks, progress bars and progress rings as an example. But let's go further down to the area that really excites me, that's charts. We've got donut charts, Gantt charts, horizontal bar charts, etc. Now, great that you can go and drop one of these into the card designer and actually see how that represents itself, but also how you pass through the data. But now I said this is more of a demo for non-technical people, yes and no. What's important here is to understand that this object drives the card. And because we can take that object and start utilizing it in our AI, means that we can start generating dynamic graph information based off of the information that we're getting from AI. So let's put this into a live example of exactly what we can do with those cards. Okay, so let's actually jump into it. So I'm going to open up Copilot Studio, and within Copilot Studio, we've created an agent, and that agent has one specific task in mind. What does it do? Well, as per the description, an agent that generates an adaptive card using JSON objects for use in Teams based on given base structure and a prompt. In terms of the general instructions, it's taking an adaptive card, using the information from a trigger. We'll cover that in a little bit. It's going to take an adaptive a JSON adaptive card template, like the ones that we just saw in the Adaptive Designer IO. It's going to take an instruction as to how to use the adaptive card. And finally, it's going to call an action after the manipulation. Now, think about this agent as a reusable agent. It is autonomous. It's not something that you generally question. It's something that you might call from a workflow to say, I need an adaptive card. It needs to be dynamic. I need to pull all the information in. So can you design an adaptive card for me? So this agent will sit waiting, listening for an instruction. That instruction will pass it a template, the prompt that it needs to use to create the dynamism, and then finally tell it what to do after that. In this example, we've only set up one action. You could obviously set up multiple actions and one trigger. So let's jump back into what those are. So an action, or what's now called a tool, is the ability to interact with another system based off of what you configure for that agent. So within Copilot Studio, we can add multiple tools. Those tools, if we open this tool section up, look a lot like the actions that are available in Power Automate. And the reason for that is that's exactly what they are. So your Copilot Studio is talking to Power Automate in order to provide it with actions. So think of sending someone an email or calling another workflow to complete this action. These are the types of tools that you will be adding in to your application. So in our case, we're sending information to our morning operational report. Then we have a trigger. So a trigger isn't an action. It's a special type of action that allows this process to kick off. Because this is something that is waiting and listening, you would expect this to be a HTTP endpoint or something of the sort. Well, the way the Copilot Studio works is that it once again uses Power Automate. By default, you can create this as a kick off your adaptive card based off of a recurrence or something of the sort, but that wouldn't work for us. We need something to actually listen for that adaptive card to be kicked off. So when you look at the triggers, one thing that you'll notice is you can edit this in Power Automate. So let's jump over and have a look at that Power Automate to see how it triggers. So we have a manual button trigger. Now, what's nice about this? Well, you can call it from other Power Automates. As soon as you've got one of these actions, you could click a button on your mobile device or something of the sort. But in this case, we want to use it like a API connection where you can call this kick off an adaptive card. It will run through the process and complete it. So in this case, we pass it an adaptive card, we give it a prompt, we also tell it what action to call after the fact. Now, when you're calling a flow like this from another flow, you always have to respond to that other flow. It is part of the inbuilt kind of security checks just to make sure that you don't have a process that just keeps on running. So our parent flow, let's say it kicks off on a daily basis, then calls this, it gets a response to say, okay, this is done. And in this case, the final step is sending a prompt to Copilot with all of our information that we've pulled through. So the adaptive card, the instruction, and the action. So this runs on a daily basis. And in terms of our operational report, what this is doing is capturing all of our data from Planner. I'm not going to go into that today because that's a whole nother talk on itself, but we get all of the information from Planner using Graph. Now, if you're anything like me, you've probably got tasks all over Planner in different teams, different discussions, etc. So this aggregates all of the information, then calls our adaptive card generator and sends the person an instruction on a daily basis to discuss whether they're red, orange, or green, or red, amber, green, your RAG status every morning so that everyone in the team knows whether you need help with something or not. So let's go and actually have a look at what this looks like in Teams. So we open up our workflow chat in Teams where this gets sent through. And what you'll see here is that we start off with a basic pattern of the adaptive card, just giving us a greeting, saying, good morning, how are you doing? These are your upcoming tasks. It then generates a actionable card for every one of our planner tasks. So you can see the task name, you can see when it's due, you can see the source here being MS Planner, because when we do this, we actually connect to Planner, we connect to ClickUp, we connect to Zoho. We aggregate all the tasks together, and a button which gives us an action to go and open up and view that task elsewhere. Now, not everyone has these same tasks. These are clearly all of my tasks that are sitting within my planner. So we've got checking in on Trevin's one-to-one. We've got planning a video for Zoho MCP. We've got all sorts of other things that are allocated to me within Planner. And then down at the bottom, our instruction where you can choose, I'm green, I'm doing well, or send a red saying, I need help because I'm stuck on this area. So you can imagine with all of these different tasks coming through, these need to be generated dynamically. And that's exactly what we're doing with our adaptive card behind the scenes, or adaptive card agent, where we pass it that string, we create a prompt to say, okay, fill in these details. And then finally, we send it back to the individual user. Where else are we using this? We've got a challenge going on at the moment with GT, where it's a step challenge. And throughout the month, everyone's been tracking their fitness goals and their steps. We wanted a way to utilize the graph technology. So we've incorporated that into our GT step challenge. And on a daily basis, kicks off, pulls in everyone's data that they've captured using our capture step, which uses a Power App to allow you to start capturing your information, and then graphs that information for us so that we can see where we're sitting, etc. Now, that part of the dynamism is utilizing the adaptive card, saying, okay, I've got all of these values, plug it into the card for me and present it in a way that's understandable for what I'm trying to achieve. So in this case, giving me a graph telling me that, Brad's done 200,000 steps whilst I'm still sitting at 131,000. So I've obviously got to do a lot more working, but a lot better than Jax, who's sitting on 8,000 steps. So I'm doing something right there. The other part of this is providing a motivational, every single day, different motivational quote just to get the team fired up. And then also assessing the data and creating a write-up as to exactly what is happening with all the data, who's winning, where we're at. So very useful in terms of showing that graph, but also the automation that I don't really need to know how to generate a adaptive card behind the scenes. And just to show you how the action buttons work as an example, capturing those steps jumps me across to the GT Step Challenge, where it pulls together our GT Step Challenge, where I can see all of the information that's been captured over the month. I can see my progress. Obviously, every second day I'm doing well, but not every day, so there's no consistency there. And I can go and then capture my steps for the next day, actioning it, approving it. And all of that information pushes into a SharePoint list in the background, and then we display it using that graph every morning. So fun way to start getting involved with adaptive cards and better ways to interact with the data that you're seeing on the screen within Copilot or within Teams. A solid way of constructing those cards without actually having to know too much about the adaptive card function itself and getting your head stuck into those basic objects. So that's it for today. We'll be coming back with some other exciting changes that we've had in our AI environment so that we can help you grow yours as well. Thank you.